Okay, welcome to our third meeting of the DCOI Advisory Council. We're so happy to have you with us this morning, and we are excited to share updates on our work to mobilize DCOI strategies and practices to more Ontario post-secondary institutions to support their efforts in making positive impacts in their students with disabilities employment journey. Also, we're looking forward to having conversation with you about current updates from the accessibility sector and learning about the important works that your organizations are prioritizing. Before we start, I want to share this quote from the late David Onley during the launch of the DCOI 1.0 project back in 2018. And he said, lack of employment continues to be one of the greatest barriers to full equality faced by persons with disabilities. I'm honored to be associated with and lend my name to Carlton's inspiring new initiative. And when our project recently worked with the four Ottawa institutions, we call them the Ottawa Collaborations, to organize career fair with federal government departments. And as I was browsing through the photos collection, this particular photo reminds me of the quote from David Onley, and I share this with you today with the intention of reconnecting what we do with our purpose, particularly through this initiative, David C. Onley Initiative. As we reconnect with our purpose, I also invite you to reconnect and respect the place we're living, our land. Land where we live, eat, breathe, and work tirelessly to make positive and meaningful changes in our lives and the people around us. Carleton University acknowledges the location of its campus upon the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. I am joining you from Ottawa. I respectfully acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people. I receive so many blessings. I'm learning about and acknowledging the history of discrimination and oppression of the settlers against the indigenous people of this land, and that I and all of us together must take active part in the measures and actions toward decolonization and reconciliation to stop harm, to address generational trauma, and to end systemic racism in Turtle Island. Allow me to go through some housekeeping matters. We invite everyone to turn on your video. We also kindly ask that you switch off your microphone. However, there will be time where we really love to have you engage with us during the discussion session today. We will turn on the live caption. Mirfat, can you help enable this, please? Thank you. We enable also the chat box, and we ask you to use it to ask your questions as we go through our deliberation. Mirfat will be able to read your questions during the discussion session. But don't hesitate to raise your hand or press the raise hand button if you have burning question you would like to ask. We would be happy to assist. And if we cannot go through all your questions, we will compile and respond to them in an email following this meeting. And a recording of this meeting will be made available to all council members and for our project internal reference and archive. No worries, Janice. We have those days when internet it's not friendly with us. Okay. We have three major agenda items to discuss today. First, we have new faces, so we would like to do a roundtable introduction with the project team and also the council members. Second, we will provide some updates from the project since the last meeting we had back in April. And we want to have conversation with you on your priorities to support employment of students with disabilities in your organization. Okay, let's start with our first agenda. Okay, this is the structure of the DCOI project team. Our project is guided by the Accessibility Institute leadership, who are all here with us today. So may I invite you to introduce yourself, please, maybe starting from Boris to Tara and Julie. Over to you, Boris.
I was looking for a mic. I don't think I found the one I was looking for, but I found one. Hi, I'm Boris Wilkowicz, Director of the Accessibility Institute and the National Office for the Canadian Accessibility Network. Thanks.
And over to you, Tara.
Hi, good morning to everyone. My name is Tara Conley. For those of you who haven't met before, I'm the Assistant Director of Research and Development with the Institute. And I've been working with the Accessibility Institute for about, I guess it's about 5 or 6 years now. So it's an exciting place to be working and getting to meet folks like you in our different projects.
Thank you so much, Tara. And I'll invite Julie next.
Yes, thank you. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Julie Caldwell, and I'm one of the assistant directors at the Accessibility Institute. I oversee all of our operations. And I had the great fortune, along with Tara, to co-lead the first round of the DCOI project 1.0. And so really excited to see the work happening in the second phase of the project, and so glad that all of you could be a part of this process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Boris, Tara, and Julie. And for the project team ourselves, my name is Muhammad Andri Mulya as the project manager. And then I will pass also to my team member to introduce themselves. I'll start with Mirvat. Over to you, Mirvat.
Hi, everyone. This is Mirvat Sanallah. I'm the project coordinator for DCOI 2.0. I also had the pleasure to work with the DCOI 1.0 team. So I'm glad to be here and attend this exciting discussion.
Thank you. Satpreet.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Satpreet Dhillon. I am the Knowledge Mobilization Lead for DCOI 2.0, and my role involves synthesizing all the wonderful research that was done in 1.0 and bringing it to life in 2.0.
Excellent. Thank you, Satpreet. And next, I'll invite Dean Melway.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dean Melway, and I'm privileged to be attached to this program once again and focusing on the 4 Ottawa schools and helping them achieve their goals.
Thank you, Dean. And Dean is a familiar face in the accessibility sector. Next, I'll invite Bonnie.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. I'm a pilot guide, so I work with the Ontario collaborating schools, and I'm really looking forward to sharing the updates since our last meeting in March. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. And we do have 2 new team members joining us, and I'll start with Carlo Mandarino.
Hi everyone, Carlo Mandarino. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. I joined the DCOI team in late August, and a real pleasure working with all my colleagues on DCOI team for this important work.
Thank you, Carlo. And also Daniel Gomez.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Daniel Gomez. I'm a Knowledge Mobilization Officer. I'm co-working with Satpreet on developing tools and resources for the FieldGuide.
Thank you, everyone. And that's our team from the DCOI 2.0. And next, let's get to know each other from the advisory council members. I would like to invite representative from IDIA, Inter-Universities Disabilities Issues Association. We have Anika and Sarah today with us.
Annika and I are looking at each other, seeing who's going to go first. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Cloak. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of the assistant directors within accessibility services at the University of Toronto St. George campus. Thank you for inviting us to be part of this.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Annika Stabno. I'm also at U of T St. George campus. I'm the Experiential Learning Accommodations Coordinator. So mostly working with faculty and staff around the disability accommodations process in experiential and work integrated learning.
Thank you, Sarah. Annika, it's good to have you with the council. And this is your first meeting, so we hope you we look forward to have a journey with you through this project. And do we have Elizabeth? Not yet. Okay. I'll invite the representative from CCIA, Colleges Committee on Accessibility Issue, Janice.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Janice Fennell, and I'm the Director of Accessible Learning and Inclusion at Sheridan College. And I'm all
Sorry, Janice, I think we lost your audio. Okay, probably there's a technical connection issue from Janice. We'll go back to Janice to finish. Next, I'll invite representative from EARN, Employment Accessibility Resource Network, Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. It's Kelly McGahee. Lovely to see you all today on what is a very snowy sort of atmosphere here in Ottawa. And I am with the Employment Accessibility Resource Network.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, our representative from Canadian Association of Career Educators and Employers, Casey. Trevor.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Trevor Buttram. I'm the Executive Director of KC, coming at this from the lens representing our members from 70 plus post-secondary institutions across the country, as well as our network of employers and in key sectors like banking, financial services, insurance, transportation, energy, government and public service, as well as across the board in terms of small to medium enterprise, and really looking forward to the conversation today and next steps in the project.
Awesome, thank you so much, Trevor. And I'll invite the representative from Cooperative Education and Work Integrated Learning Canada, CWIL, Janet.
Thank you so much. My name is Janet Westbury. I'm the Regional Associate Director for Central Canada, which means I'm responsible for all the post-secondary institutes in Ontario, Manitoba. And it's an absolute pleasure to meet all of you today and share this space. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Janet. Next, our representative from Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Lisa.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lisa Kelly. I work I actually am program lead on a project called the Discoverability. My pronouns are she, her. I'm delighted to be here. Anything we can do to help support, the inclusion of people with disabilities in the workforce.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We do have a representative from National Educational Association of Disabled Students, NEEDS, Elizabeth Moller. We don't have her here yet. And then the other one is from ODEN, Ontario Disabilities Employment Network, Janet Campbell. She's also not with us yet. Okay, and that's our advisory council members and from across organizations, like very key organizations, spearheading lots of areas of work in accessibility and employment. So thank you so much for your time and being with us today. Next in our agenda is the exciting part from the project is the updates. We are very proud of our achievements and the progress we've made, and we would like to share them with you today. So there are 4 areas of work that we would like to focus today. The FieldGuide, our collaboration with 3 Ontario PSIs, post-secondary institutions, our continuing collaboration with 4 Ottawa PSIs, and our works on measurement and evaluation of the DCOI practices. To do that, I'm gonna invite my team member to share their progress and updates with you. The first one, I'll invite the knowledge mobilization team, Saprit and Daniel. Over to you, Saprit, Daniel.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'll be giving a few updates for the field guide. So the field guide for our last meeting, the content was just starting to be written. I'm happy to say that we are very close to being fully written with the content that lives in the field guide and having it translated into French as well. As that's being written, my colleague Danielle is starting to bring more of the tools from DCOI 1.0 to life, and we'll start to dive into that a little bit in the next slide. But we are supporting a lot of our collaborators with these tools, creating tools to support them through their pilot journey, and receiving their feedback to improve the tools so that when it lives in the field guide for the public, they are the best possible version of themselves. So we did do the first beta test in August and September time. The first phase did do well. We got very positive feedback, and the feedback that we did receive on the content and on the navigation and implementation of the field guide, we have implemented now for phase 2. The phase 2 of the beta test will be happening in the new year, so in and around January, February timeline, where we'll be asking our users to comment on the content, the tools, and the navigation again for the field guide. So please look out for your inboxes for an invite for our second beta test phase. You'll be receiving that in the new year, where we'll be asking for your feedback specifically. And then we'll do our final phase of the beta test in the May and June time area. So that will be after the pilot schools have gotten a chance to also use the field guide for their journey. Throughout the summer, we'll also be doing some checkpoint testing and some fine tuning to make sure that the field guide is ready for public launch by September. And then we will be leading into the promotional activities for the field guide so that it's ready for the public and for the public launch in September 2024. A little bit of a deeper dive into the toolkits for the field guide. So each of the practices, if you may or may not remember, serves to the best practices from 1.0. So within these best practices, we have started to create tools and toolkits to communicate the messaging for each practice better, to provide our audience members with resources, worksheets, tools to use with students, tools to use with employers. So just to go a little bit of between what's happening in each of the practices, a few of the toolkits that might exist in the collaboration between service providers looks into identifying your collaboration partners, how to facilitate knowledge exchange events with agenda items, discussion points, follow-up emails, templates, everything like that. For the accessible events practice, we're looking into 4 major toolkits outlining each of the student, staff, volunteer ambassador, and employer experience. So that includes everything from communication emails, registration, wayfinding material, surveys, post-event surveys. For our accessible employment journeys practice, we have toolkits that will help support the employer with the hiring process for students with disabilities, so making that hiring process accessible. This includes tools that encompass UDL and how to apply it to interviewing, job posts, hiring, everything. We also are looking into creating some packages that will help 3 different audiences understand the employment pathways. So those are packages for employers, students, and staff. We will also be having toolkits within our employment pathway facilitator practice, which will include resources to help set the stage for the EPF hiring, the EPF job postings, and tools and resources that the EPF can use and share with the student. And finally, for our last practice, nurturing an inclusive and accessible campus, this is where our tools for the Awareness Plus campaign will live. So we'll have some toolkits for the logistics for the campaign, the marketing for the campaign, campaign resources, and communication. I'll let Daniel talk a little bit more about what the tools are specifically looking like.
Thank you, Separate. But yeah, this is just kind of a sample of our initial tools from the employment journey toolkits, specifically aiming at supporting employers in hiring students with disabilities. The blue sheet is kind of just a tool template intro on introducing UDL framework features into the hiring process, and the other one on the right is an accessibility tip sheet on the do's and don'ts in posting jobs. But yeah, as a breakdown, every kind of individual tool is going to be roughly 2 to 4 pages in length, a couple pages in length, aiming to be kind of practical, direct, and efficient on conveying these principles. They'll, like Sapri had said, they're going to be complementary components, subcomponents of a larger toolkit, targeting a specific audience and a goal within each of the content practices. So again, this was just kind of more towards making employment journey accessible, focusing on employers and the goals of hiring students with disabilities. Because we have those 5 larger content areas with diverse audiences amongst every single one of them, and the goals inside of them, multiple toolkits will be created with lots of individualized tools within those kits. And as Priya had mentioned, they're going to be across the board, like checklists, infographics, different guidelines and templates, pre-designed formats to save time and ensure a consistency. But yeah, thankfully we've been building off of much of what was already researched and a lot of the resources that were compiled in the first project. So, and Sapri and I had recently spent about 7 hours brainstorming with our subject matter experts, with Julie and Tara, on developing like a clearer vision and within those target areas for those practices. So we're excited to see how they'll shine in the FieldGuide and help our partners. So, but yeah, speaking of partners, I think the next slide is introducing our
Thank
collaboration.
you. Yeah, thank you, Saprit. Thank you, Danielle. If you have any questions about the field guide, please feel free to post it in the chat. And next, I will invite, this is for Bonnie, to speak about our collaboration with 3 Ontario institutions. Over to you, Bonnie.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And we go to the next slide, please. Just to recall, I'm working with our 3 pilot collaborators, Lakehead University on both of their campuses of Orillia and Thunder Bay, Ontario, George Brown College in Toronto, and the University of Guelph. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of the project, at our last meeting, we were just in the stages of finishing the readiness part of the project. We now have just completed the discovery and develop, and we are now in the delivery stage, going from September until the end of the summer of this year. And this is really exciting, because this is where all of the work from the first 2 parts of the project are on the ground. And what that looks like in each one of the pilot schools is very, very different. And so even though the 3 schools have decided to put some of their funds towards a new hire, what that looks like in specific size of university, where the university or college is located, what the culture is, it's really exciting to be exploring with the schools and supporting them with my DCOI colleagues here in Ottawa of what that looks like. And so on the next few stages, and in about 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to do my best to highlight what has occurred since we last met in the spring. So the activity highlights that we have finished the charter and Imagineering, and we had just were in the process of completing that at our last meeting. And since then, we've had the opportunity to do some really good deep dives into the highlights of the practices last spring, and that allowed the collaborators to really align and prioritize which of the practices they wanted to use, and then developing their implementation plan. And we've also just completed our first collaborator knowledge exchange, and that will allow each of the schools to share the learnings and their experience with us and also with each other. And it's been really a joy to see how the schools are starting to collaborate and make the connections between the two of them. In progress, as I mentioned, the schools have all decided to use some of the funds towards a new hire, and those have really focused on 3 of the 5 practices. So even though they're really embedding all of the practice, the primary focus has been the collaboration between the service providers, the employment journeys, and the accessible events. And we've been really lucky to be able to engage and leverage subject matter experts in Julie and Tara, and also our collaborating schools to act as advisors. And working with Carlo, the schools are now developing their measurement and evaluation and applying the practices and the changing and what they really would like to see changed towards improving the outcomes for students with disabilities. As Saprit mentioned, the pilot schools are also going to be taking part in the beta testing come the winter of 2024, and managing the collaborative knowledge exchange. We've already talked about that. So next slide, please. In terms of the operations, this has also been a really, really interesting part of the project, because it's not so much emphasizing the content, but as we move into the delivery phase, those really important sessions with the pilots have changed a little bit, and that allows us to be flexible in allowing those discussions to have, whether they're in meetings or whether they're new core team members, or whether it's archiving all our information, having impromptu meetings for support, where often we can pull in our experts from the DCOI team, and also, of course, providing them with the tools and resources that they are asking for. And that really means being flexible in how we facilitate with the 3 schools and capture those really important team dynamics and learning that again reflect the individual culture of each school. And we're also enhancing the regular meeting, not trying to balance with all the stakeholders, I would say, not bombarding everyone, because as we know, there are a lot of meetings, and especially in December, the student service is really, really busy, and so we work to support them the best way that we can, and we're continuing to enhance the practices and really explore and be flexible so we can support them in meeting their goals. Next slide, please. And this, I believe, is going over to Dean, who works with our post-secondary institutions from DCOI 1.0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Please, Dean.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the presenters already who've really covered the work that's been going on. So in Ottawa, we because the 4 schools were involved in the first place, we had several meetings through the first year and just kind of finalized things about the time that we last met with the advisory council. And we've focused on 2 approaches. Well, one is we're doing 2 collaborative job fairs involving all 4 schools. The first one was actually completed on November 9th. It was a federal government career fair, and we had 54 federal government departments attend. And the students from the 4 schools, we had just under 100. We had advertised only to 200. We closed it, but then of course you don't get the full participation. We're pretty excited though with the outcome, and we're now in the process of evaluating the student opinion of what happened, the government department opinion, and of course our own volunteers and participants. So it's an exciting time for us now. We've begun the planning for the second job fair, which will be a corporate job fair, and will be held in March 26th, and we're still evaluating sites. I'm not sure if we'll go back to the same site we used for the initial fair. Probably not, but we'll see how that goes. We're pretty happy with the outcome, and I'm just going to move my look at the people here over so I can see the results there. So we basically you can go on to the next slide, Andre. We've covered that. So now the four organizations have created this job fair team, which is working as a team, and we're kind of excited about the learnings from that and the opportunity for other communities to sort of take that approach. A lot of the work, though, that we're going to now move to with the FieldGuide will be individual for each school. So you can go to the next slide. So we have 4 individual approaches happening with the schools, and we're at the stage now where we're kind of going through the planning and getting ready to launch the work that will be done by each school on the FieldGuide in January. So far, Carleton is focusing on the accessible events practice. Algonquin is looking at the employment journey. And we just met with Ottawa U this week, and they're going to also look at the making employment journeys accessible. And La Cité is, we're scheduled to meet on Monday, and they're kind of not sure which direction they're going to take, because they're a small school, they're a francophone school, and their staff situation is not very positive in terms of accessibility and disability. So we're gonna expect that actually a lot of learnings from that group, simply because they are a unique school to all of the others, and it's a chance for smaller schools across the province to maybe gain insight for how they can best implement the FieldGuide. So we're very excited about the progress, and we're looking forward to any questions that you have. And on we go, Andre.
Thank you, Dean. And next, to bundle everything from a lens of evaluation and measurement, I'll invite Carlo to share some updates.
Thanks, Andre. Thanks to my colleagues who've highlighted some different dimensions of measurement that's been taking place in each of the different projects. So I'm responsible for measurement and evaluation of activities to understand different aspects of the project. So the first slide helps articulate this. At the institutional level, measurement evaluation is focused on understanding what is happening on the ground with each institution participating in the pilot. Here we look to clarify and understand the institutional context for DCOI 1 practices that are being piloted by each institution. How are DCOI practices being implemented different or unique from current practices at the institution? We want to identify and document ease or difficulty with implementation of DCOI practices, understand the outcomes and impacts of the activities being implemented, understand if DCOI practices implemented during the pilot are feasible and sustainable at each institution. And so those are really kind of core questions that are guiding all the work and all the different initiatives that are taking place. At the pilot level, we're focused on learnings from across the institutions participating in the pilot. That include insights about implementation or effectiveness of the same DCOI practices that different institutions may be implementing in their different settings and or contexts. At the project level, we're focused on evaluation of our pilot implementation. Here we want to understand and identify effective practices and lessons learned, which can be shared with key stakeholders. Oh, I'm sorry. At the pilot level, I just wanted to focus on pilot level for a second. We're focused on learnings from across the institutions participating in the pilot, understand the effectiveness implementation of those practices across the context. At the project level, overall, want to know about the evaluation of the pilot implementation. Here we want to understand and identify effectiveness of processes and lessons learned that we can share with key stakeholders about managing and implementing a complex project of this nature. I think on to the next slide, Andrew. Good. So in my work with leads of the different pilots and different institutions that we're working with, I develop logic models, and I use this as a tool to help clarify and understand the full scope of each of the projects and ultimately identify measurement opportunities, which include measures that are key to answering the key questions and topics highlighted in the previous slide. For those who are unfamiliar with the logic model, maybe I'll just quickly share my screen very briefly. And I've just brought up a table, a basic table that has some key categories across the top. And this is a draft of a simple version of a logic model in terms of capturing key categories associated with a program or service that helps us understand the inputs and all the key inputs associated with a given initiative or practice. And those would be people, resources, policies, technology, and the like. Processes and activities, and articulating a good understanding of what those those practices and activities involved, what they seek to achieve, and we are articulating key outcomes associated with those as well. And in this work, really trying to focus in on those outcomes, what we're looking to achieve in each of the different initiatives. By articulating through a tool like this, and I can stop share now, it helps really identify all the different measurement opportunities that are available for a given initiative. And a key aspect that I wanted to highlight about the approach, and it's really about the approach that the DCOI team has taken in engaging in these initiatives, is about encouraging the team to think about what they're looking to do in the long term. These projects and initiatives have a certain scope for the purposes of DCOI, but the team has always encouraged the institutions to think about the long term and what they're working towards. And the work that I'm doing in use of logic models and establishing those those measures and indicators that help us understand impact and other key dimensions, really designed to sort of capture the breadth and the long-term goals that they have with their initiatives, while also capturing what's needed for the purposes of DCOI over the course of the scope of our particular initiative and sort of the timelines that we're dealing with, which are to really try to put together all our lessons learned, our understanding about all these different initiatives by the end of at least October 2024. Once those are all established, in effect, articulating all those key outcomes that are part of the initiatives that are being implemented, we're developing a measurement plan, really articulating very specifically the key measures that help us to understand those key components of their initiatives. And once that's established, the data starts flowing into us and working with the leads of each of these pilots to establish key timelines in which we will be receiving data. And then I can start begin to start providing a perspective in terms of what we know about the outcomes and the achievements through the pilot initiatives. I'm working with my colleagues that you've all met here in terms of the different activities and different dimensions of the initiative in terms of understanding what's happening within the pilots themselves, about our administration and our implementation as a project team, and certainly helping to sort of compile all the data that we have that contributes to the field guide that Saprit and Daniel had spoken about. So, you know, as a last point, that's really a key element, a legacy element with this initiative, and certainly contributing to understanding how the field guide's being used. So developing a framework for us to understand sort of the impact and usage of the field guide and putting those indicators in place so that the project has them in the long term and understanding sort of its evolution. And that's it for me. I'm actually, Andrea, I wasn't sure. I guess I'll just pass it back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Carlo. And actually, I want to use this opportunity to thank everyone on the team and kudos to every one of you. This project is very complex and we cannot work in silo. And what we have achieved today is a testimonial and an evidence of how collaborations is actually embodied by our team, because everything is so interconnected, like everyone's work is contributing to the other's work. And that can only happen when we have an open mind and when we have a clear objective and shared objective of where we're going. And all of that can only happen with a good leadership. So thank you, Julie, thank you, Tara, and thank you, Boris. I think we're very good in terms of timing according to agenda. I was just checking. So we're pretty much on time. Next is our last agenda. And if you have any questions about any of the elements or components of the project, please put it in the chat or send us an email or you know, ask your questions in the discussion. We're happy to have more conversation with you as well. Maybe there are parts that you have information that can be useful for us in guiding our next works, our future works, that will also be much appreciated. So the next conversation is about us wanting to hear from you as well in terms of your priorities to around support to employment for students with disabilities. And I want to thank Tara for agreeing to facilitate the next session. And so I'm handing this over to Tara, and I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other. Over to you, Tara.
Great. Thank you for doing that too. It helps me to be able to just see everyone. That's a nice treat for me. So yeah, now we just get to spend a little bit of time chatting together, and certainly we can leave some time as well too, because I do realize you've heard a lot and you're probably digesting a little bit about what the updates have been. So I'm also welcoming if you would like to ask a question about what, so first of all, I'll open it up. Does anyone have a burning question or something that they really want to follow up on first on what they've just heard before we have a discussion together? And if you're like me, the question will show up somewhere in the midst of all of it. So yes, go ahead. I see your hand up there, Trevor.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the question around the pilot programs. Very clear on what's happening in the Ottawa collaboration. That's really helpful. I do understand that most of the schools have opted to invest in a new hire, and had the pleasure of connecting with a few of my colleagues on that topic at our recent national conference. And I think it's really exciting. I'm just wondering, how are we going to be promoting and sharing out some of the, I think in some cases, groundbreaking opportunities that are being introduced in our field where, practitioners are being aligned to, I guess, the accessibility space. And I just think that there's a little bit of opportunity for some best practice sharing and learning to happen as the project is unfolding, as well as the wrap up and all the really great work that's going to be happening from a measurement and evaluation perspective. But I just am wondering if there's an opportunity to do a little bit of inspiring others to look at this. And the second question that I had was in terms of employers. I feel like that the field guides are an excellent resource and certainly something that they can take away. One of the things that we're continuing to hear from our employer community is not so much that they don't agree in principle that hiring with a lens of inclusion and accessibility is the way that they need to go. They, particularly small to medium enterprise, are just expressing concern around how to do that, how to not be afraid to ask the questions that they're afraid to ask, and how to navigate and ensure that they're in a place where they can actually offer the supports that individuals can thrive, rather than feeling like that they're just consistently moving through the duty to accommodate legislation. I think they're actually wanting to be able to have conversations that start from a thriving place rather than a place of like, oh, we've got to now do all of these things because we've made a hire, right? Like, I think it's more about how do they flip the switch and how are they vetted when they're coming in to these kinds of opportunities to ensure that their environments are where students with disabilities can in fact thrive.
So I'll start off with that because you've got a couple of questions. I'll start with the last bit and then we can kind of move back if you don't mind there, because I'm also super curious to hear from you what you're finding inspiring about what you've heard too, because I love your idea of the potential to inspire as we go along. But to the first point, what you're bringing up is actually a topic that we speak about in the Accessibility Institute quite a bit, outside even of the David C. Onley initiative, where Julie and her team found exactly what you've talked about, and I can have her speak to that as well too, in that it's not a resistance to the idea, it's a fear about how, it's a concern about how, it's how to tap into that pool, but then also how to actually do no harm, so to speak, when trying to have these conversations. And as you said, try and go beyond compliance, but to understand how to do that with it. So it's fear of making mistakes. It's fear of doing something wrong. Sometimes it's a fear of a human rights complaint if it's done wrong. Like all of those pieces are at play. And we've started thinking about that on a lot of different levels. So from your medium to small groups of businesses, we have our tap into the talent kind of modules that we created through our institute. And those were meant to sort of look at supporting organizations fully to sort of up their game entirely at a basic level. So that I would say is really about compliance, maybe compliance plus. We are also working on an accessibility certificate for ourselves too, where that is going to be far deeper dive. That's going to be for fee, where people can come and take a really much more comprehensive programming, so they themselves become champions and can support, have a deeper knowledge, more of the nuances. So we've got a bunch of those different things at play. In respect to the DCOI, for sure, being mindful that the field guide is actually focused on post-secondary, simply because that's what the funding was attached to, and that's who we're sort of zoning in right now. But we absolutely recognize that employers, like it's a synergy, right? In terms of we want to support these transitions. And so part of what we'll put into the field guide is tools that will support our post-secondary folks to support the employers that they make good connections with, which is very relevant, I'd say, to your group, right? So I think that's the answer to that one. I will hold back on the next question because I see Julie has more to add on this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to completely agree with you, Tara, and what you said. And I think at the end of the day, in the first project, we heard from our post-secondary service providers that they actually don't have time and capacity to have some of those necessary conversations about accessibility or the employer's interest in hiring a person with disability. They are, you know, we get it when we ask them some specific questions, they were like, well, we get a job posting, we put it into the system, we get it up there and it's out. And so it's somewhat times hit or miss, depends on co-op, depends on if it's new grad recruitment, if it's part-time or summer or casual or field placement type of interaction. But the level of capacity to have some of those in-depth conversations is limited. So as Tara said, we saw an absolute need to build tools and resources that are quick go-tos for post-secondary service providers, where they could share that with an employer and at least use it as a starter for the conversation and then enhance from there as needed. Does that answer that piece of things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize if I wasn't sort of as articulate and clear as I could have been. It's been a bit of a week.
No, yeah.
But I appreciate the support for the post-secondary provider in particular. I think the employer relations folks are sometimes tasked as being a little bit of a navigator of all things, including IDEA. And so I think if there's go-to resources that they can point to, I think that that's incredibly helpful, and will help in terms of navigating the next steps.
Something we've consistently heard, I believe, through many of our projects too, is that notion of a go-to person. You know, we hear it from students, but we hear it also from within post-secondary, how they would love a go-to person just to bounce ideas off of, not like an adjudicator, not a person who's going to tell them exactly what they have to do. They have the responsibility to support the accessibility, but they would love a subject matter expert who they could just kind of bounce ideas off of. Likewise, employers are saying the same things. They would love a go-to, right? Or even when we connect those two environments, employers having a go-to in the post-secondary environment, whether that's via their connect in a co-op or a careers, you know, so there's all sorts of different opportunities for that. Again, it's tough to sort of build out that role, but that's one that I sort of have a little, I have a little fantasies about, you know, creating at some point, which is just these go-to people that can really coach and support those who are actually having to make continuous decisions that up the game again for accessibility. I think that would actually be quite valuable. I have one last question before I open it up to other people. You mentioned that sort of inspiration or that groundbreaking kind of work. I'd love to hear more about a little bit like how you see that. What was it that you heard from your colleagues that you thought, oh, that's inspiring. We should use that to inspire others.
Particularly as we're seeing positions now advertised. So for example, the University of Guelph has started to roll out their hiring of their team member who will be joining, who's focused on accessibility, and you know, they're naming that it's from the DCOI funding, and I think that that's fantastic piece. I think it would just be great if there was some sort of way that we could almost provide like the synopsis of what these roles will be doing and sort of the genesis of them, because I think that a number of institutions are on this journey of how do we create dedicated roles that are supporting different communities across our spaces, but are also collaborative with the departments that have the subject matter expertise, right? And
yes.
Or initiatives that do. And so just the power of those kinds of partnerships and collaboration. And I think there's just a lot of key learning that can happen from that. And it would also be, I think, from my perspective, a little bit of inspiration to profile the subject matter expertise of the individuals who assume those roles. You know, why is it that they have capacity to be able to step into working with these communities, so that perhaps we're also shining a spotlight on whether they identify as a part of the accessibility and disability community themselves, or if they've been able to engage in the work and the learning that has brought them to a place to be able to serve these communities.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because we internally we refer to them as magical unicorns, because we recognize that to do the role. So not all of our pilots are doing a purist form of the employment pathways facilitator. What I'm finding is they are hiring a person to implement what they can of our practices, but certainly we're trying to push some of the same concepts or ideas of the employment pathways facilitator, one of which you mentioned is to not double up on, and it's not meant to replace anybody, it's meant to enhance service. It's speaking to enhancing service for students with disabilities, and students with disabilities do not need to go to an employment pathways facilitator if they do not wish to. Everywhere needs to be accessible. So if we took that out of the equation, there should be accessibility all the way across the board already. The employment pathways facilitator, what's kind of innovative of that in that idea is that it's an enhancement, and it does address a gap in service where students can actually talk about their employment journeys and their lived experience in the same breath, as opposed to bringing themselves apart to go to careers where they might have a bit of disability knowledge, or disability service, accessibility services where they might have a bit of employment knowledge. The other piece that we're asking our pilots to kind of do with these positions, even if they're not purist employment pathways facilitators, is that it doesn't become the place where all students must go to. So we're not trying to create segregated pieces. So, and we're also being sensitive to the fact that there are expertise out there around careers. So that being said, I love that you also said, but how could we shine a light on what it takes to be doing this particular role? Because eventually we would like to push that post-secondaries have this kind of support. And so what does that look like? And yes, we've done some job descriptions and we'll include that in the field guide, but I love your idea of profiling some folks who are doing this work so that even out there in the field, we can get a sense of, well, what's the experience that gets you to be able to do that? You know, what kind of education, what kind of lived experience, what kind of work experience is helpful? Because I tell you, it's actually hard to find people who have comfort and knowledge in both those areas and can really free flow to support that and facilitate that sort of collaboration connection between those areas in post-secondary as well. So I love that idea. We're noting that one down for sure.
And I just wanted to draw attention as well to one other piece that's happening, and this might be the segue into the regular conversation. I apologize for derailing a little bit, but my at Conestoga College, they've actually created a position within their talent hub called an inclusion and accessibility officer. And rather than being the resource for frontline practice, they are actually the resource for staff, employers, and so I think that there might be just, you know, further dialogue, you know, around like when we can profiling that piece, that there's just so much value, as you said, you know, for off the top, rather than creating you must go here because that's where the subject matter expertise is, that there's actually resources and tools for that frontline practitioner to become more confident and also a little bit more resourced in terms of being able to support students or employers who are coming through the door.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for actually pointing that one out, because we'll definitely look into that. And it's actually the last function of the employment pathways facilitator, which we didn't get a chance to test in the first phase, which is that being supportive to building capacity for others in their peers, not solely the student facing part. I see
Thanks
Dean.
for holding space. I appreciate that.
Oh my goodness, this is great conversation for sure. I see Dean and also Bonnie. Bonnie, did you have a follow-up exactly on that, or do you want to wait?
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that you've seen the ad from Guelph, and I wanted to pass on that they have actually hired somebody who's starting on Monday, and I'm meeting with them for an hour and a half on Tuesday. So I love your idea of sharing, and of course the positioning of these new hires is really different, and so I'm glad you brought up this this opportunity, because it gives us a great chance to share what that looks like in the profiling of the person. I think is a fantastic idea, so thanks for that.
I've got Dean, but I also see, I believe Janice might be, she's telling us that her raise hand function isn't working, which I'm going to assume, Janice, that might mean that you'd like to actually raise your hand. Yes?
Yes.
You're attempting to do so? Okay, so
I've been frantically trying to raise my hand. I've had lots of tech issues this morning. I apologize. And yeah, I really like the idea of the employment pathways facilitator, and I wonder about how do we, or what's happening to ensure that it doesn't become more of a complaints kind of. It's that position that students and everyone goes to when there are complaints or issues, with employment, or I think about like the work integrated learning context. So what would that look like? And especially ensuring as well that we have practitioners in that position who are also, who really have understanding of some of the particular challenges of students with certain disability types. For example, I think of persons on the autism spectrum and what that looks like. So I might have, missed some of those pieces when my tech crashed, but I
No,
just, yeah, I
you
wondered
definitely
what.
didn't miss. I think that's one of the reasons why the EPF of all of our practices is actually almost the most prescriptive. There's a lot of flex in how to do this, these practices overall, and that's why we're testing them in pilots in other places, because we don't want to just be Ottawa centric. We want to see that, what's it like in different places and different spaces and different post-secondary cultures, all of that. But the EPF does have some very distinct underpinnings that are crucial if you want to call it an EPF. Otherwise, you've kind of just hired someone to implement really good, cool stuff that you're doing to support students, which is also not a bad thing at all. I'm not putting that down. I think that's any school that wants to hire an extra body, as we know in student services, to help us support our students and or our staff as well to build capacity is awesome. The EPF definitely has some very specific things to it, one of which is that they are not the place only for, so a big element of the EPF is scaffolded referrals. So it's not just, oh, go see so-and-so. It's scaffolded because there's a knowledge and an understanding of the complexities for students with disabilities in their outreach and the time it takes in navigating systems. However, it's not a, I'm going to do it for you. It's very solution-oriented, but it's an empowerment model. So as you can see, those words, I might sound a bit jargony, but there's actually some really strong underpinnings about how this is articulated. And I think that's one of the projects of our institute, is to really well actually articulate it. We sort of have been having discussions already to say that the FieldGuide probably won't be able to do it justice. It's really going to give people an idea, hopefully, as Trevor mentioned, an inspiration to be like, wow, we would love to see this in our organization. We're planning to potentially offer like whether it's a webinar or a training package that really goes to, like, if you're deciding to take this on, let us support you in some training, because it's pretty nuanced, and the way you build it and design it matters. Otherwise, you will find yourself, if you're not expecting that people might all of a sudden decide you're the complaints department or you're the ombuds person, or it has to be very clear that it actually is not meant to take over any other roles. So that's my short answer to that one. I don't know if Julie, did you want to add any more to that piece? No? Okay. Always feel free to come back around on that one too. Dean, thank you for patiently waiting. Come on in, tell us more.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention and one of them I didn't get to mention when I was doing my presentation about where we're at. I wanted to bring up. But I'll do that second. The first thing is that the whole emphasis that we don't want to lose in this, and that came up in what Trevor was saying, is that it's not just the one person that's going to make the difference. It's the ability of schools to look way broader at the whole issue of accessibility and inclusion. And Carleton, or the Accessibility Institute, has taken two very significant approaches. One being the development of a coordinated accessibility strategy, the other being the development of the Canadian Accessibility Network. So internally, every department at Carleton is now participating in a kind of an overview of what are you doing? How does accessibility affect you? Even down to the procurement committee, to every aspect, the physical plant committee. So it's probably very helpful. We certainly are excited about the progress that's being made here, but check out the coordinated accessibility strategy. It's well documented on the Accessibility Institute's website, and it really talks about the way you can do sort of a fulsome approach to inclusion on a campus. Second, I wanted to really highlight and acknowledge when I gave my presentation, I talked about 54 government departments becoming involved, and that's principally because of the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission was our partner in that endeavor, and we made decisions with them, but they were the one who took on the task of bringing the corporates or the government departments together and on board. And we made an evaluation, decide we had too many departments there, but the bottom line is it wouldn't have happened at all without the work that they did. And now as we're progressing toward the corporate career event that we're going to do in the spring, we're partnering with EARN, and Kelly's at the table, and we're thrilled about that. And really, EARN gives us the opportunity to reach out to corporations that are already aware and able to understand the value of hiring persons with disabilities. And so we're very excited, and it's a way of saying that it's not what we're doing so much as it's how we partner with others. And having you all around this table is going to help make this project much stronger. And in the end, I'm hoping that the ministry pulls from this some of the things that we'll be recommending to them at the end is that, in fact, they have an ability to do more in this space, and that they, maybe there's going to be a little more opportunity for funding for the kinds of things that we're targeting and testing throughout this process. So that's all. Just missed a couple of things. Wanted to get them in.
Awesome. Thank you, Dean. Cool. Why don't we take, if there's not other questions regarding the last bit of content, and as Andrew mentioned, feel free to email us or check in with us if you have something, a little aha moment later where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I wanted to check in about that. For us, we wanted to spend just the last few minutes having a quick discussion about where you're seeing, what are your priorities from either you can bring the perspective of your organization or sort of the area of the field you're working from. If you want to point out actually individually what you think some of your priorities would be as well too, that's okay, around supporting our students with disabilities in terms of their employment goals. I've got that right, Andrea? Did I articulate that correctly in terms of what we're good? So, just, and that can be pain points, things you're seeing, gaps you're seeing, or it can be, I love that actually the mention of Conestoga as well around things that you've seen people implement, all good stuff. So why don't we jump in a little bit around that? All right, Ern, bring it in.
Thank you, Tara. And I just wanted to follow up. Thank you, Dean, for talking about this collaboration. Just wanted to mention that we too at EARN are really, really excited about this, and wanted folks around the table to know that employers have been reaching out to us over the last few months as they had a hint that this might be coming down the pike, that this event is something that they're excited about and interested in participating in. I won't take up too much of your time because I know you want to focus on particularly on that student piece, but just in terms of what we're hearing from the employer side, an uptick, and I don't think this will be new to many of you here, around an increased understanding that employers, I know, feel that they need to get better at the retention of people with disabilities in their organizations. So recognizing that recruitment, onboarding, the kind of work that you're doing directly with students as they transition into the workplace is important for them, and getting that right will lead to enhanced retention further down the road, but also all of those other things that they need to be doing within organizations around retention. to that end, we just held a conference last week, 2 weeks ago, where one of our presenters, by the way, was Kathy from the Institute. So we're really, really happy to have her there. She was talking about that. Sorry, Kathy Malcolm Edwards was talking about that connection between well-being in organizations and retention. It was really poignant and actually resonated a lot with our audience. So just to let you know that we will be focusing more and more, not leaving behind recruitment and onboarding as we work with employers going forward. But I know that that piece around retention will continue to be important to them. And you were sort of talking about, touch points for success and people having access to expertise, to, knowledge, subject matter experts in terms of bouncing ideas off, et cetera. And I would say for those of you who are coming from across the country, that sort of peer network model of EARN, not to toot EARN's horn in particular, but that ability of employers and service providers to know each other and to be able to connect in really quickly with each other, I think is actually really useful as well. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, and feel free to sound off about that. I think that's actually a really important model to be letting other communities know about, right? Because it has proven to be something that's of support, and the employers in your network, because I've been involved, absolutely feel that from you, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for that. I also wanted to say thanks to Janice as well around mentioning, neurodivergent individuals too, because I think sometimes when we're talking about accessibility and inclusion, we do, even when we're well versed in it ourselves, it's an easy thing to lean to in terms of things that might be either non-visible, not as visible, or that show up in different ways at different times. Right. So that there's not necessarily always a consistency. Not all environments can be challenging, not all. So, really talking about how we make sure that we create services and we support employers, whatever that is, in a fulsome understanding of lived experience, right? Not just one type of lived experience, which I know I'm speaking to people who already understand this, but it's a good reminder. So thank you. That's always my shout out, that colleges have always had a lot to tell the universities, and the universities always have a lot to tell the colleges. I love the fact that in something like this, we're also learning from each other. Anyone else who wants to sort of speak to what they're seeing? What's a priority area that they've been noticing or are working on themselves? I don't know, folks, not to put you on the spot, but hey, you, T, how's it going? Anything you want to mention? Oh, and I see Janice with her hand up.
Yes, so I know that one of the things that we struggled with at Sheridan, I know when I was introducing myself, my computer crashed. So I am the Director of Accessible Learning and Inclusion at Sheridan and representing CCAI on this call. And one of the things we encountered at Sheridan was really recognizing that our career and co-op areas, they were unsure about how to support students with disabilities when they were in employment contexts, and certain issues came up that were a function of the student's disability, and they didn't know how to necessarily support employers with consistency. And we saw that as an opportunity to create a toolkit, really coming from that standpoint that it's not a matter that employers don't want to do the right thing, but sometimes are just unsure. And you guys articulated it really well, that sometimes there's fear, people are just not sure how to support certain situations. And so we created an employer toolkit to increase awareness of some of the employment barriers faced by persons with disabilities. We also wanted to highlight the financial benefits associated with hiring persons with disabilities. We felt that we still had a responsibility to underscore the legal duty to accommodate students with disabilities, explaining the accommodation process. And we wanted to also share some tools and resources that existed within Sheridan and generally across communities. And so we focused on kind of taking an educational approach for employers, but also we created a companion guide for students and alumni as well, just educating them about their rights, their responsibilities. And so we still feel that although we've created these what we consider to be really great resources, and we've done a good job of trying to disseminate the resources, we still have persons in some of these areas that contributed to the resource coming back and asking, questions that we think, they should be aware of. So it's really ensuring that people are connecting the dots and recognizes just a ton of resources out there, including what we contributed to as well. So it's really, and I think it comes down to priorities. It also comes down to people looking at a particular group and area and saying, oh, they are experts on accessibility, so let's go to them, and not necessarily making it, their business, and recognizing that we have a duty of care in our educational institutions, as we're partnering with some of our host organizations who are taking on our students for, work integrated learning activities. So I'll stop there.
I'm going to create a t-shirt based on that. It says, make it your business. Make it your business. It's your business too.
Yes.
Right? Because, and you're absolutely right. It's often because of like, everyone's at full capacity. There's, everyone's trying to do more with even less these days. I get that for sure. But I think it's about making these things digestible and easy to, nobody's being asked to become an expert in everything. Absolutely not. We're just asking everyone to sort of build their skills slowly, but also collaborate, because you do have colleagues who do understand this stuff. And so the more the collaboration happens, the easier I think people thrive when they feel someone's got their back, whether that's their employer, whether that's their colleagues, whether that's knowledge content specialists. So I think that's an important element. But you're right, there's continued work to do, even when all those resources are out there, which makes me think about, how we continue to support the FieldGuide once that's there, because it's really, we're excited to bring the learnings to the FieldGuide. But again, it's going to be just one sort of way to offer this kind of knowledge and to motivate and act. So we'll be mindful on how to kind of leap from there too. Anyone else want to share?
I can step in there from U of T. We're seeing very similar things that Janice mentioned, with employers wanting to help but not really knowing what to do, sort of across the board, and similar with our co-op offices, feeling similarly. So we've done a couple of things, which includes the creation of my role and a role in our career education center that's focused specifically on meeting with students with disabilities. So that's been really helpful. We can kind of capture the co-curricular piece with that role, and then the curricular piece within accessibility services, which is more within our space. We did create a disclosure and accommodations guide that we found helpful. We'll just put it in the chat here, that I know some employers have found helpful as well. And I think there is a DCOI one too. This one's longer, but has similar information. And we've been working individually with each of the professional faculties, which there are a lot of them, to create the accommodation process there as well, and also meeting with each of the department, some of them as much as I can, such as our co-op offices and other folks, because we have almost 20 different career offices on campus, as opposed to, we do also have a central office, but trying to build disability literacy across campus. So no matter who a student is asking questions to, everyone can at least have a similar answer, at least kind of know where to send folks. And I've been asking, kind of being a bit of a central catch-all for folks with questions around experiential or work integrated learning accommodation. So I think that's been really helpful as well, to just have that one, as we chatted about earlier too, that someone can ask questions to. I think that's a quick summary of what's happening. I see
you were like
an
on that.
I got it. But yeah, it's been a lot of questions still, and I'm excited for the field guide and other resources to come out. I think will be really helpful.
Yeah, we're excited about this. I know that I can see from Andrew too, he helps me stay on time so that I'm going to wrap up. But, you know, a last comment around, we're excited about DCOI 2.0 right now that we're in because we're getting to focus in on post-secondary, but we're never losing sight of what we started with in DCOI 1, which is this is a collective impact strategy. It's not all of post-secondaries to own at all, or we can't make that full impact, nor employers only. It's government, it's service providers, it's community partners, it's students themselves, it's the post-secondary service providers, it's all of us together that need to actually be figuring out that sort of supportive transition into careers and workplaces. I love that you were talking about the retention piece, because as a transitions person myself, you know, like when we transition into something, it's not like, okay, we're done. Great. We had a fantastic transition in. You transition me into a place that doesn't get me, I'm not going to thrive for long. So I think those are all really important concepts, and they necessarily require us all together. And I love that Dean also mentioned, like, we've got things to say to the government on how they could be doing more, because they're part of that collective impact. Whether I hope they know, I think they know, right? But we're also going to remind them about all that pieces, right? Because, you know, we can also in our sectors come up with really great stuff to do, but we know we need those funding pockets to be able to support the good work. So thank you for your contributions to this, because with each new discussion we have, we kind of build our case for what's working, what's not, and bringing those pieces to potential funders to say, this is going to make impact if you fund it. So, Andrew, I leave it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you everyone for a great insight, great questions, and inspiring discussion. Our team still has a great and exciting work ahead of us. Please connect with us if you need more information, or if you have things like you can share with us. And Janice, I just saw that you have resources that you created that Sheridan do. Yes, share with us. We, as much as we focus on post-secondary in this project, we latch ourselves to the mothership, which is the collective impact strategy. Like, yeah, we're part of the board collective. I'm sorry for my sci-fi. All right. Again, for the next meeting, we plan our next meeting between March and May. Boy, we're talking about 2024 already. So our next meeting between March and May, and we have lots of activities across all the different lenses of the components of the project before then, and hopefully by that next meeting we are able to share more some tangible stories, evolutions that we can bring from the ground and to share with you. My team will be able will reach out to you to find the most suitable date around that. As usual, we're gonna send out a doodle pool calendar availability check. And yeah, so thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for all the nice discussions. Thank you for being with us in this journey. And if we don't see you until the end of the year, we wish you a wonderful holidays and a happy new year. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Merci, miigwech.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you very much.